Hi folks, and welcome to another 146 professional video in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Over the last few months, we've been putting the finishing touches on two very large projects that have been undertaken in our 146 professional. These projects include a brand new passenger cabin for each of the 146's variants, and the other is the custom UNS-1 flight management system. Both of these updates will be released free of charge to all customers of the 146 Professional on PC and Xbox. In this video, we'll be covering the brand new passenger cabins. As we stand up and leave the cockpit, we get our first view of the cabin. The cabins feature a high density 3+3 layout and are custom modelled for each of the three 146's passenger variants, from the shortest 100 variant to the longest 300 variant. Due to the unusual fuselage shape and wing position of the 146, this leads to quite a few quirks inside of the cabin. The first of these is the difference in the seating layout at the rear of the aircraft due to the curvature of the fuselage, where the 3+3 configuration reduces to a 2+2 configuration for the last few rows. Towards the centre of the cabin, we can see a side effects of the 146's high wing configuration, and that is a slightly lower ceiling where the wing box and centre fuel tanks are located. On the real aircraft, it will be important to pay attention to your seat selection prior to check-in, as you wouldn't want to be stuck in these rows that not only have limited visibility out the windows, but also have much smaller overhead bins. At least the view is better than this row, which is missing a window completely. Moving to the forward galley, we can see that the forward passenger door is open and the air stairs are extended. We can retract the air stairs by first pressurising the yellow hydraulic system using the AC pump in the cockpit, and then clicking on one of the handrails. Once the air stairs have been stored, we can click on the release handle on the door to release the latch, and the door will be pulled in towards us, and it will then drop down and lock.
Cabin crew on-board and check.
To open the door again, we can click on the handle and then click on the handrail of the air stairs to extend them. The AC pump is still switched on at the moment, but we don't need that to extend the air stairs. In fact, we can turn that off now, as we care about the ground crew's hearing. We can open the service door on the other side of the galley using the same technique, and if it wasn't obvious enough that the door is open, door lock indicator lights on the panel above the door illuminate whenever a door is open or not locked. Continuing on this panel, we can see a selection of power and light switches. The ground service power switch serves as a useful function for being able to power the aircraft's ground service bus without entering the cockpit and turning on the batteries and other aircraft systems. To demonstrate this, if we set up the aircraft in a cold and dark state,
Cold and dark selected.
and then connect the ground power unit, we can see the ground power available light illuminates once the ground power unit is ready to start supplying electrical power. Switching on the ground service power switch will then power the ground service bus, providing electrical supply to the cabin. If we look into the cockpit, we can see the cockpit is still in a cold and dark state, with both batteries off and the external AC switch off, so we can be sure that we aren't putting any unnecessary loads through the aircraft systems when it's not necessary. With the cabin electrically powered, we can then turn on the selection of cabin lighting. Each switch is labelled with the lights that it controls, so the front and rear entry switches control the front and rear galley lights. The centre cabin switches control the left and right ceiling lights. The side cabin switches control the left and right sidewall lights. and the front and rear toilet switches control the toilet lighting. Rounding out this panel, we have a variety of switches and circuit breakers for other Galley equipment in cabin lighting which are animated, even if they aren't systems which can really be modelled in any great depth in a flight simulator. That just leaves the 5 amber lights down the left and right sides of the speaker. The 2 lights on the left side illuminate when the fasten seatbelt sign or no smoking signs are switched on, and the lights on the right side are cabin call lights that illuminate depending on the origin of a call. The cabin call light will illuminate if a passenger presses the cabin call button on their passenger service unit above the seat, or the toilet lights will illuminate if a passenger presses the cabin call button in one of the toilets. Similar to the logic we've used in our F28 Professional, we've added some logic to these lights so that they will randomly illuminate throughout the flight, simulating a passenger requesting the cabin crew's assistance. Once the cabin crew button has been pressed, a chime will be heard and the light will illuminate, and the cabin crew will automatically clear the call request after a few moments. On the topic of cabin calls, on the other side of the galley we have the forward communications panel. This panel is used for communications between the forward and rear galley, passenger cabin and cockpit. Various buttons on this panel can be pressed to make calls to the respective areas, and the button will illuminate when the call is active. The cabin emergency lighting can also be controlled from this panel. One of our favourite features that we trialled in our F28 Professional release last year was the music reproducer. We received a lot of positive feedback from users who were enjoying this feature, and so with this 146 Professional update, we wanted to push that functionality even further. The Becker DP4100 is featured on the wall next to the main passenger door. The DP4100 is a digital player that we initially planned to release with our F70 and F100 Professionals later in the year, but as we had the modelling already complete, it seemed a shame not to include it in the 146-2. This digital player allows you to pick one of 7 music tracks for you to play in the cabin, as well as adjust the volume. The player also allows you to shuffle the order of the music and skip tracks, just like a real music player. And you'll be pleased to know that just like our F28 Professional, you will be able to import and play your own music. Now that we've covered the forward galley, we can move to the rear galley. The galley layouts are fairly similar, but as per the real aircraft, the rear galley has less functionality than the forward galley. Although the doors still open in a similar manner to the forward galley, the cabin call panel is slightly different, with several switch emissions from the one in the forward galley. The panel above the aft service door is also simplified compared to the one in the forward galley, with this one only providing basic cabin annunciators for the seatbelt and no smoking signs, as well as cabin calls. Note that there are no controls for the cabin lighting in the rear galley. Rounding up the cabin, we can head back to the cockpit and briefly touch on the EFB options relating to the cabin. Although we are seeing minimal performance impact with the new cabin compared to the old cabin, we have retained the option to disable the cabin completely on the EFB. This may be a useful feature for users on lower end PCs and Xbox consoles where a few more FPS and an increased VRAM overhead might be needed. We also have the auto cabin lights option, which when enabled automatically controls the intensity of the cabin lights based on the simulator's ambient lighting conditions. Disabling this option will reveal a slider that will allow you to manually control the intensity of the lights. When the auto cabin crew option is enabled, the cabin crew will automatically be performing their duties throughout the flight. So during boarding, they will automatically play boarding music when the door opens. Prior to takeoff, they will tell you that the cabin is secure, and once airborne, they will respond to cabin calls from the passengers. And that about wraps up the new cabins in our 146 Professional. As a reminder, these cabins will be included in an upcoming free of charge update to our 146 Professional in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we will be showing off even more features of this update in the near future. To make sure that you don't miss out on any of our future videos, remember to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.